Hey guys, I'm Claire. This is my first time doing a video, by the way. That's why it's super simple, and I know the lighting's like not very good in here. I am a first-time mum, and this is my baby girl Trinity. She just turned 3 months old recently, and it makes me kind of sad because I just feel like it went by really quickly. Like, she's not a newborn anymore, which is so weird. So I started this channel because I wanted to start sharing my journey as a new mum. It can definitely be challenging at times, like especially kind of like right at the beginning, and then there's always like a new challenge that you kind of come across. So if you are also a new mum, then I just wanted to let you know that you're definitely not alone in your journey. It can be kind of lonely being a mum sometimes as well, so I'm here for you. And also, if you are pregnant or you are wanting to have children one day, then I hope that my videos will be helpful to give you like a little bit of an insight into what you can look forward to. Okay, so it turns out it's not that easy to film with a baby. I started filming this yesterday, and then she needed a diaper change, and so I had to change her diaper, and while I was changing it, she peed on herself. And when baby girls pee, it kind of goes like underneath their bum and like all over their lower back, and she ended up just swimming in it. So I just had to give her a bath, and then after I bathed her, like I changed her, and then she did a poo, so I gave up filming. So I'm going to try again now. She is asleep at the moment, so I'm hoping that she'll stay that way for a little while I do my video. So for my first video, I thought it would make sense to start by sharing my birth story of how my baby girl arrived in the world. My birth story was not the birth story that I'd hoped for. So everything that happened was pretty much the complete opposite of what I'd wanted, and it all happened really quickly and unexpectedly. So I was quite emotional, like really upset and overwhelmed at the time. If you're pregnant, I would just say try to be as open and prepared as you can for anything to happen, because people said the same thing to me as well, but I couldn't have imagined it would go the way that it did. So I can't say that my birth experience was traumatic as such. I know that there are people who have really traumatic birth experiences and horror stories to tell, and that wasn't quite the case for me. But everything that happened was out of my control, and I didn't really get a choice. So it did affect me quite a lot emotionally and mentally. And after the birth, it took me a little while just to come to terms with what had happened and like to be okay with it. And I know at the end of the day, like the important thing is that my baby girl arrived safely, and she's doing well. And I gave birth, I think, about 2 weeks before the whole COVID-19 thing like blew up, and everything started shutting down, and people were panic buying, that sort of thing. So I was really fortunate that I was allowed my husband in the room with me, and also one of my really good friends. So everything wasn't so bad, and it was really good to be able to have that happen. And I just wanted to say to begin with, because I just don't want anyone to get the wrong idea, like I don't think that there's any right or wrong way to give birth. I know that everyone has their own personal preferences, and for some people, like because of health concerns or complications, they don't get a choice either, which was the case for me. So there is like no right or wrong, but for me, because it was my first time, I just kind of had envisioned my birth, like her birth, to go a certain way, and that's why I was so upset that it didn't. So I'll start off by talking about like what I'd kind of hoped for the birth, and then I'll explain what actually happened. So I was fortunate like to have a pretty good pregnancy overall. So I didn't really have any complications. I found pregnancy like pretty easy, and like I wasn't even really that sick that often. I was just quite tired towards the end, and because of that, I just assumed that things would like be fine when it came to labor as well. And I really, after like 9 months of giving birth, like as my first time, I really wanted it to end kind of like the way that you would see on the movies, which I know doesn't even happen for everyone anyway. But like I wanted the whole experience of my water breaking and going through the labor process, and then like pushing a baby out, and at the end being able to hold my baby in my arms, and just to have that sigh of relief that's over. I had planned on having a natural birth with like as little medical intervention as possible. So I had made a choice pretty early on that I really didn't want the epidural, just because I hate needles, and like the idea of it scares me, and I just had heard like horror stories of it not working for people, or it like wearing off halfway through and that sort of thing. So that was kind of like a big no-no for me. I like had thought about the only options for pain relief being either water, like if I needed it at the time, or like heat packs, or like I bought stress balls to try and help me with the pain. So I like had really wanted it to go as natural as possible. So I had planned on like when labor began to try and do as much of it at home, just because I knew I'd be more comfortable there. And then I was expecting to go to the hospital maybe when I was like around 6 centimeters dilated. So for anyone who doesn't know how it works, a baby's ready to be pushed out when you are 10 centimeters dilated. So that just means that your like cervix opens that like big enough obviously for like a baby to come out. And generally like you will dilate kind of as you're having contractions, and so that's what's kind of happening with your body. And I know, like I've heard for a lot of people, that if you go into the hospital too soon when you go into labor, then they will end up sending you home. So I had planned on doing as much as I could at home, and I wanted to, like after the delivery of my baby, there are a few things that I was really after. So one of them was delayed cord clamping, when you like the doctor doesn't cut, or whoever's cutting the cord doesn't cut the umbilical cord. I don't even know how to say that, but they don't cut the cord until until I think it's gone white and it's stopped pulsating, and that's just to allow like all the really good kind of like nutrients, and I think like iron, that sort of thing, red blood cells to like go into the baby from the placenta. So that was one of the things I really wanted, and I also wanted like my baby to not really be like wiped down completely or washed or anything, because babies have what's called a vernix, which is like it's like the covering on their body from like when they're inside the inside you in the little amniotic sac. They've got like a I think it's kind of like meant to be greasy or something, but it's just they've got a covering, and it's got a really like it's got really good stuff for their skin, and so I didn't want that wiped off either, and I wanted my baby to come straight onto my chest and have skin to skin, because again it's supposed to be really good for them, and I didn't want anything to happen right away, like, you know, measurements and that sort of thing. I didn't want any of that for a little while, until I had like a moment with my baby. So that's all the sort of things that I kind of had envisioned. So now I'll just talk about what actually happened. It was about a month before my baby's due date. I was at my midwife appointment, and like they do all the checks, like, you know, your blood pressure and like baby's heart rate, that sort of thing. Everything was fine, but then they measure the fundal height, which is kind of like the measurement of the arch of your belly. Generally the measurement should kind of match like how far along you are. So if you are, say, like 36 weeks pregnant, then generally, like on average, the measurement of your fundal height would be around 36 centimeters. So mine was measuring a little like under, so I was like further along than I was measuring. And so my midwife wanted me to do an ultrasound scan, like to make sure that everything was still kind of okay with baby. So I did the ultrasound scan, and like everything looked fine. My baby was in the 12th percentile, which meant that 88% of babies on average were bigger. So for example, like if you know your baby was in like the 40th percentile, then 60% would be bigger, and everything else was fine. The blood flow between the placenta was fine. Everything else was operating well, and so no concerns at all. And then I went back for my next midwife appointment 2 weeks before the due date, and again, like everything was fine except the fundal height was still obviously below average, like it had been 2 weeks before, and it had grown. So like my bump had grown, but it was still below the like average. So she still wanted me, as like just as the guidelines, like to get another scan just to make sure everything was okay. And this was 2 weeks after my last scan. So for me, I didn't really want to go. I just kind of assumed that like everything would be okay, and given my fundal height had still grown, I just assumed everything was fine, and I didn't really want to go just because I was starting to get really tired towards the end, and I don't drive because we only have one car and my husband takes it for work. So for me to get to the hospital, even though it's not that far, it was kind of like a 30-minute ride on public transport for me, and I was getting really tired towards the end, so it just was like extra effort to have to go there, and I didn't really want to go. So I didn't book the appointment for the scan. And a week before the due date, my midwife called me. It was a Thursday morning, and she was like non-stop calling me, messaging me, and asking if I'd I'd gone in for the scan, like if I'd booked it, and I said no. And she was really pushing for me to get it, and she like kept saying that, you know, it was really important, and they just needed to make sure that my baby was okay and still growing. And then I had the head of the midwives at the hospital call me as well, and she said that, like, she explained why it was really important that I went to get the scan. So she told me to get it done as soon as possible, and that was a Thursday, so I booked it for the next day on a Friday. And this was a week before my baby was due. So I went in on the Friday at around 1 o'clock for my appointment. Like, everything in the morning was just as normal, because I honestly thought that it was just going to be an appointment and I was going to be out and everything was going to be fine. I don't even think I had lunch that day for that reason, because I honestly thought I would just go in and come out and have lunch and go back to normal. But that didn't happen, so everything progressed pretty quickly. My baby, when I went into the ultrasound, my baby had dropped to the 5th percentile, which meant that 95% of babies at that like point in time on average were bigger, and my baby was 39 weeks by then, which is like a week out by the due date, and by then it's pretty much like they're pretty much considered full term. And the 5th, like her being in the 5th percentile wasn't really the issue, but they'd started to notice that the placenta had, like my placenta had started to slow down, and I didn't quite understand what the doctor was trying to explain, but I think what he was trying to say was that the blood flow to all the other organs had stopped, and the blood flow was going just straight to my baby's brain, and that was kind of like a signal that that she was trying to keep herself alive. So all the blood was just going straight to the brain to make sure she kept alive, and they were pretty worried that my placenta was just going to stop working altogether at any point. So I didn't get a choice at all. I was told that I was going to be kept at the hospital that night and induced the next day to have my baby. So as you can imagine, because I had this whole like natural kind of birth idea in my head, like of what I'd wanted, obviously I felt really overwhelmed. I remember messaging my mom and just telling her what had happened, and I was just like, I don't want to be induced, and she said, oh no, don't let them induce you. And like, I had always said that I wouldn't want to be induced either, but I didn't really get a choice this time. They sent me upstairs to like one of the wards, and like immediately put a little monitor thing on my belly to keep monitoring my baby's heart rate. And then I'd have like the midwife come and explain like what was going to happen, and then I had like a doctor come and explain what was going to happen as well. So I was basically told at that point that they were going to stick a like balloon thing inside me that afternoon, and it was meant to kind of like dilate my cervix to, I think, 4 centimeters, and then they were going to break my waters the next day and induce me, and then I was going to have my baby at some point. Either the next day or the day after. So I was in tears by then. I was just so overwhelmed, and I just couldn't understand like why all that was happening. I thought that it was like, in my head I just thought it was all like the doctor's just, you know, worrying too much, and I was just like, no, it's gonna be fine. And I kept saying like, can I not just go home and have a think about it that night? Like, I hadn't even eaten, I didn't have my hospital bag with me, I was so unprepared, but they didn't let me go home. Like I know that, you know, they like at the end of the day they couldn't have forced me to stay there, but they really like highly recommended that I stay there, and they weren't really going to let me out. And I had like quite a few like different doctors come and talk to me. So I did end up staying, and I had to call my husband so that when he finished work, he got the rest of my hospital stuff ready and brought it over to the hospital. And then I had my friend with me come as well to give me company. So they did the balloon thing. It's called a Foley balloon, I think, and it's so uncomfortable. And the nurse that did it did not give me warning. She literally just shoved her fingers up my vagina and like tried to put the balloon up there, and it hurt so much I had to get her to stop, and the doctor had to take over and do it. But they stick the balloon up, and then they fill it up with water. And so, as I said, it's designed to kind of like fill up like overnight and like expand my cervix so that like they can get their fingers up there to break the waters the next day. It was the most uncomfortable thing ever. I feel so bad for anyone who ever has to have that balloon in them, because it's sticking outside of you, and then they had to tape it to the side of my leg. And so all night like if I had to go to the bathroom or like when I showered, it was just kind of weird having something coming out of me and like just stuck to my leg. And like I would, like, sorry about the TMI, but every time I'd go pee, like I would pee on like the cord thing, and it was so gross. So because I was so overwhelmed by everything that had happened and how uncomfortable I was, I didn't sleep at all that night. And also when that Foley balloon thing, when it's inside you, it gives you cramps as well. Like, so I was getting pretty bad, like kind of period like cramps. And I had a heat pack on all night. So I was really uncomfortable and I didn't sleep. I closed my eyes and the whole night I was just like worrying and hoping that like suddenly my waters would break naturally and that my baby would just arrive on her own so that I wouldn't have to go through the whole process. But that didn't happen at all. And they woke me up at 6 a.m. the next morning to go into labor. So my husband and my good friend came, like they arrived around 6 o'clock as well to get ready with me. And we went down to the labor ward and I think I didn't take a lot of pictures on the day, and I really wish I had, but my friend got a couple of pictures, so I'll try and show you a picture of what the room looked like in a bit. It was a really big room and it felt quite dark, and like I don't really know what it was, but it just didn't feel comfortable. Like, and I already knew from the moment I stepped foot in that room that I wasn't going to be comfortable and that it wasn't going to be a nice day. So they moved me into the ward, and the nurse asked me to like eat something, and I was so tired. It was really hard for me to eat, and I could barely even open my eyes at the time, but I had a little bit of Weet-Bix and some apple juice, and then she broke my waters at 7 o'clock, and oh my god, again, so uncomfortable. I just, it was so yuck. Like, obviously having her fingers shoved up there, and then I think she had little like I think she mentioned she had little like pins or something on the end of her gloves to like break the waters. And she was asking me, like she gave me the option of having the gas like to try and distract me, and I don't even know the purpose of that gas. It really didn't work for me, and I wasn't even doing it properly. So I kind of just like clenched my teeth and my fists while she was doing that, and so she broke my waters and it was fine, like no issues there. And I was really worried about getting my waters broken for me, because I'd heard a story before, like from someone who, like when they had their waters broken, like the nurse had cut their baby's head a little, so their baby's head was bleeding. So I think that's why I was so scared of that happening. Luckily that didn't happen. She did a really good job, and my waters broke. Then she started to like get the like an IV drip thingy ready. It like to give you, I think it was like, I think it's Pitocin, which is the stuff, I don't even know if I'm explaining it, like, I mean, sorry, I'm pronouncing it right, but the stuff that they give you that basically makes you contract. That was another thing that I really didn't want, and obviously when you're induced you don't really get a choice. So she started me on the drip, and after about an hour, like nothing was really happening, and I was kind of like, oh, I can't really feel anything. Am I supposed to be feeling anything? And then she checked, and it turns out that it was blocked, like the tube that was going into my hand was blocked. And so she took a while trying to kind of like find my vein somewhere else and get the tube in, and it was so uncomfortable. And I hate, as I said, needles and getting my blood taken and that sort of thing, and so it was really uncomfortable for me to have like a tube sticking into my veins. And she kept trying in different like places and on my other arm, and in the end she ended up having to get one of like the specialists who like specialize in putting needles in people's veins to come and get one right. So she ended up putting it in my arm, and then we could start again. And so then the process began, and in the beginning it was okay, it was manageable. Like I did start to get like really light contractions, and they did feel kind of just like mild period pain, and so it was manageable. It was quite uncomfortable for me because I had the little drip thingy attached to me. I had to like carry, like I had to wheel around my drip with me anywhere I went. So anytime I went to the bathroom, it came with me. And at one point I know that I was in a little bit of pain, so I hopped in the shower, and I was allowed in the shower, but I wasn't allowed in any baths or anything like that. And then like this contraction started to get stronger, and my midwife would come in. So the midwives don't stay in the room with you. They kind of like are outside in their little station, and they can read the heart rate and everything from where they are, and they'll come in if they've got any concerns. So she would come in, like she came in I think 2 or 3 times to increase the level of like in my drip to like make my contractions stronger. So they did start getting like pretty bad after a while, and I was just trying to kind of like bear them as much as I could. And then because I was really tired, I just started to get, like, I was exhausted by then, and I just decided I wanted to shut my eyes, and I thought it might help me with the pain. And so I lay in bed and like tried to get through them, and then the contractions just got like harder and harder, and I started to get really, really cold. And I just remember being freezing, and my friend came over, and like my husband, and they were like wrapping me in blankets and things and trying to keep me warm. And then all of a sudden my baby's heart rate dropped, and the midwife came running in, and she was a bit worried, and she tried to kind of like move me in a different position. And I think the movement, like the positioning, helped a little bit. And so then like I kept going, but then again, like shortly after my baby's heart rate dropped, and I think at that point my midwife had to turn off the little, like the drip thing, so because if it kept going, it would have made my contractions even like worse. And they were already getting stronger, so even though it was turned off, they were getting stronger, and they were getting closer together. And I like, everything was such a blur for me because I was so tired. I remember I could barely even open my eyes, and I was feeling like, by then I'd started feeling like a lot of pain. And I remember being so cold and like asking for like to be able to put like a sweater on or something, but they wouldn't let me. I can't remember why, but I had like my friend and my husband rubbing my back because I was in so much pain. If you've got someone who can rub your back, it helps so much. But my friend and my husband were over by the, like on the bed, like rubbing me, like made me feel better. And they had a team of doctors rush in. I don't know if they were all doctors actually. It just felt like a lot of people rushed in, but I think it might have been like 1 or 2 doctors and then like some students. But they all rushed in, and they had to shove like a little monitor up inside me again onto her head. And so again, for like the 3rd time, I had fingers shoved up, and it was super uncomfortable, and I was in so much pain already. So it was like, ugh, not nice at all. But they measured her off that little monitor for a little while. I don't know how long it was before everything kind of just like turned sour, because it didn't really feel like that long at all. But before I knew it, my baby was showing signs of distress, and her heart rate had dropped like pretty dangerously low, and they were really concerned. And so that was the point when the doctors basically said that the best thing was to have an emergency C-section to get her out as quickly as possible and safely. And also because at that point they said like they had all the team ready to go, and it was better for me to do it then. Because I was a little hesitant, like I kind of asked like what my other options were, and they basically said that if I was to wait later, that they might not have all the team there, and it would be like a massively rushed C-section and probably not as safe. So by then, because I, like as I said, like I was just so tired, and I just didn't, I think it was maybe 3 o'clock in the afternoon by then, and I just couldn't imagine like having to go on any longer, and I was quite worried for my baby. So I ended up signing the papers for the C-section, and also my midwife was going to do a swap over at 7 o'clock, so I only had really like a few more hours with her, and I just was worried that I wouldn't have her for like the birth of my baby. So I ended up I did say yes at that point. So they wheeled me off into the surgery room, and my husband was allowed in the room with me, so he had to put on scrubs and everything, and my friend had to stay outside. My midwife didn't really tell me what she was going to do and like what happened. I had to hear it from my husband, so I was a little bit bummed, because as soon as she came out and I heard her crying, I feel like she just got taken away. Like I kept asking them, I feel like I asked them like 3 times if they delayed cord clamping, because it was so important to me, and I was just like, I really, really wanted that, like since I couldn't get the natural birth. And they did say that they did do it, but I don't know, because it didn't really feel like a very long time. So however long they delayed it for, it couldn't have been any more than like 30 seconds. I don't know, I could be exaggerating, I'm not sure. Maybe like I couldn't see what was going on, so maybe they did delay it. I hope they did. But before I knew it, like I saw my baby being lifted up, and like she got rushed straight out, so my midwife just took her. And my husband went out as well with her, and so I could kind of see like out the door that she was doing measurements, and she'd like wrapped my baby up in like the little blankets that they get in the hospital, and like a little hat. And my husband told me that she got a heel prick, which like that was another thing that I didn't know. that was going to happen, and I didn't get a choice. So I'm a little bit like disappointed that I wasn't told that. But apparently she had a heel prick, and that was to check the blood sugar levels, because my baby was considered full term. So as I said, she was 39 weeks, and that's considered full term, but she was actually measuring like quite low in weight. So she came out at 2.4 kilos, which is about 5.3 pounds, and that was like on the cusp of being like too low. So they did have to do the heel prick tests like every few hours for the first 24 hours to check her blood sugar levels, and that was devastating. To like, it was so hard as a new mum. Like, watching your baby scream because they're in so much pain is the most heartbreaking thing, and it was really hard for me to watch. And I really just wish that they didn't have to do it. I know that they have to do, you know, they have like certain precautions and like measures that they have to take, just, you know, like to make sure the baby's okay, but that was horrible. Like, after the surgery, they took baby off with my husband to do skin to skin with him while they finished like stitching me up, and then they moved me into a different room to do a few tests and things like that. And then I think it would have been maybe like 30 to 40 minutes after her birth. She was born at 3:50 in the afternoon, and I think, yeah, it would have been maybe about 40 minutes after that. They brought Bub back and tried to put her on my chest and tried to get her to latch on for breastfeeding, and she was crying quite a bit, so it didn't quite work out. And I don't know what time it was when I finally was able to breastfeed her, but that was kind of like, I guess it was probably about an hour afterwards, and they'd wheeled me into the ward where I was going to be staying. So that was the other thing that I was going to say at the beginning, is that before like everything happened, one of like my wishes was that I wouldn't be in hospital for too long after the birth. So like, obviously I was hoping for a natural birth, and then I was wanting to be out of the hospital and home as soon as I could. Obviously, because I had major surgery, I didn't get that option, and I ended up having to stay in the hospital for 3 nights. And for the first night I wasn't able to move, so they put a catheter in, so I couldn't go to the toilet or like get up or move or anything like that. And I wasn't allowed anybody to stay either, so my husband had to leave at the end of the night and come back the next morning, which was really hard for me because like I'd had to get through the whole night by myself, and like I wasn't really getting any sleep at all. And then my husband would come in the morning and take baby so that I could have like a shower and eat and have a little bit of a rest. And I had a nurse come in each of the days that I was in hospital to like jab me in the thigh with a shot that's supposed to help you stop like clotting, and that was not nice. And yeah, then we left on the Tuesday afternoon. So my baby was born on a Saturday afternoon at 3:50, and then we left on Tuesday afternoon 3 days later. So when we got home, we had a midwife visit 3 times that week, which was really nice. And then like on the Saturday, exactly a week after, I had my stitches, or I had my band-aid, sorry, like ripped off. Even though obviously, as I said, like my whole experience was quite opposite to what I'd wanted, and like I was pretty like gutted afterwards and pretty upset. In hindsight, I am really grateful that my baby like did come safely, and they did do everything they could to like make sure she would come safely. And I was really fortunate that she didn't have to go to NICU, because she passed all her like blood sugar level tests, and she gained weight. Actually, I didn't mention that. So babies like tend to lose weight in their first week, and they weren't really going to let her go if she dropped too much weight. But like fortunately, like miraculously, she gained 60 grams like after 3 days. So they let her go, and that's like unheard of. They were pretty amazed. So they let us go home for that reason, which was great. But yeah, that's my birth story. If you want to, you can stick around and like hear about my C-section experience. And if you did like my story, then please give me a thumbs up, because it's my first time, and I hope to have you guys again like for my future videos.